I remember Andros being much easier when I was a kid. Okay, you sleep this one off too, I've got this. Here is your wrestling news. A top WWE star has been dropped from a major angle. Shotzi Blackheart has had her car stolen. And a Raw star's in-ring return has been confirmed for next week. We'll talk about it in a bit. So it was on Raw on Monday. Kevin Owens and Randy Orton had themselves a little cheeky match. I enjoyed the match, actually. I thought it was really good fun. But Kevin Owens was conspicuous by his absence a little earlier on in the night. So Kev has been involved in the story around Seth Rollins and Dominic Mysterio. And when Dom was getting battered by Seth on Raw Monday night, no sign of Kevin Owens anywhere. This was something that came up in conversation on Wrestling Observer Radio, and there was a few people who were absent from that scene, but one of those that was brought up was Kevin Owens. Since he's been involved in the story as of late, it was strange to not see him there. And Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio says the following: Kevin Owens was there, i.e. at Raw. He has fallen out of his program. He was supposed to be in a program with Seth until they just dropped it when Ray agreed to stay. So what we can glean from this is, and it's kind of obvious when you look at it on television, is that there was a thing that continued to bubble over between Seth and Kevin Owens. That stems from WrestleMania. But with Rey Mysterio's contract situation sort of hanging in the balance, they weren't entirely sure whether or not Ray was going to stick around. So you've got Kevin Owens there as a bit of a backup plan, a bit of a fail-safe. So in the event of Rey Mysterio deciding to not continue working with WWE, you could easily plant Kevin Owens into that role, and Kevin Owens continues the feud with Seth Rollins instead. Obviously now Rey is staying with the company, so the plan is set to continue as expected, with Dominic Mysterio at SummerSlam facing off against Seth Rollins. And as for Kevin Owens, well, seems a little bit out on a limb at the moment. As it stands, there are no plans for Kevin Owens to be a part of SummerSlam this year. I guess this is the danger when you are basically the backup and the understudy, if you will, and then you're not needed. You're kind of out without anything to do. Now, there's a week to go, one more episode of Raw to go before we get to SummerSlam, so that could easily change. But whether or not we see Kevin Owens rushed into a storyline for the sake of getting him on the card remains to be seen. As of late, WWE haven't been so pushed to make sure that everybody is on every single show. Hence why we've enjoyed the luxury of WWE pay-per-views that go about 2.5 to 3 hours. Isn't it been lovely? So it might be a case that Kev misses SummerSlam altogether. Possibly, maybe, I don't know, does a run-in during the Seth and Dominic match. But if you don't see Kev involved in anything for a couple of weeks, then that is probably why. Sort of as he does stuff with the KO show to kind of keep him around, but there's nothing really solid for Kevin Owens going forward. Now, don't misread this as Kevin Owens falling out with WWE. Absolutely not the case. It's just the case that Kevin Owens isn't 100% tied into stuff with storylines on WWE TV right now. Expect a few skits from the KO show, a couple of odd matches against maybe mid-card guys to bring them up, but for now, not much for Kev. We send our best to Shotzi Blackheart. She shared some heartbreaking news on Twitter yesterday, saying, "My car was stolen outside my apartment last night in Orlando. 2015 white Honda Civic, LYTP77. Last tracked down Chickasaw at 5 a.m. Also, my gear bag with all my gear, boots, entrance jacket and helmet were in the trunk. If you're wondering why I'm wrestling in street clothes and don't have my helmet, that is why. I'm mostly sad about the helmet. My first day of training 7 years ago, I saw that helmet hung up on the wall next to the ring. I look at it every day I went to training. Finally, when it was time for me to start having matches, I asked the trainers if I could have it. RIP helmet." So of all the things that she's lost, the helmet is the most devastating. We send nothing but love to Shotzi. Hopefully this is something that has a strong resolution. Let's find the car. I've given you the details of the car. Somebody on planet Earth knows what happens to Shotzi Blackheart's car, and I'm hoping that they come forward and Shotzi gets, at the very least, her helmet back. Future NXT plans have been revealed by PW Insider. We know NXT 30 is coming up this month, but we can look to October for the next NXT takeover. In particular, October the 4th, which is a Saturday. That is when we are next expected to see an NXT takeover. When it comes to NXT UK, we are fast approaching October the 25th. That is the day that we have in the books for NXT UK Takeover Dublin. This was a date that was moved a couple of times as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. As it stands now, according to PW Insider and a few other sources, that show does not look likely due to the restrictions in place still following the start of the pandemic. So we may not get NXT UK Takeover Dublin at all this year. It is yet to be seen, which is devastating because it's also it was also going to be like a really good restart point for NXT UK to have that show in October and get everything back to normal. At this point, we don't know when NXT UK is set to restart. We do know that there are strong plans to bring NXT UK back, contrary to what we were hearing a month or so ago. We just don't know when at this point. Look in my eyes, what do you see? A tweet from CM Punk. Is he the leader of Retribution? Is he returning to the WWE? No. Ring of Honor put out a statement yesterday announcing they are returning to producing episodes of their TV show in Maryland. So it's Ring of Honor, like many wrestling companies, have been completely on hold during the pandemic, and they are finally taking those tentative steps to get things back up and running again. This comes from the press release from Ring of Honor. ROH will adhere to a very stringent protocol as well as regulations set in place by the Maryland State Athletic Commission. Ring of Honor will be instituting the necessary testing and safety measures in a continued effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19. There will be no fans or staff who are not essential to the production present during these events. So empty arena shows for Ring of Honor beginning very soon. Joe Koff, the Chief Operating Officer, said, "Taking care of our people during this difficult time has been and still is our number one priority. That's why we've spent many weeks working alongside the Maryland State Commission in gearing towards our return to producing wrestling action. The strictest of protocols, testing and measures will be in place to assure us of this directive." They will be continuing, they also said, where they left off in April with the Ring of Honor Pure Championship tournament. Matt Seidel was on the Ring of Honor podcast recently, and he has confirmed he will be a part of that tournament as well. So expect Ring of Honor back on your monitors, your TV screens, however you consume it. I don't know whether you've got a projector that beams it against your neighbour's wall. I don't know these things, but expect Ring of Honor back onto a regular taped schedule very, very soon. Mae Young Classic competitor Vanessa Craven has announced she is retiring from professional wrestling. You may remember back in 2018, Vanessa Craven was in the opening round of the Mae Young Classic facing Lacey Lane, now known as Caden Carter in NXT. A striking presence from Vanessa Craven. However, surprisingly, didn't lead to a contract with WWE, but a career well-travelled nonetheless. Vanessa Craven, part of Japan on multiple tours at places like Neo Japan Ladies and JWP, a regular in Shimmer in the US. Her and Tessa Blanchard were Shimmer Tag Team Champions as well. She was in the first Queen of the Deathmatch tournament, part of IWA Mid-South as well. She's done a whole lot of stuff in her career, but she believes that now is the time to call it a day. If you, like me, love the work of Vanessa Craven, you can jump over to her Twitter now and still get hands on some of her merch. She's just sort of clearing out the cupboards now, merch, and you can get involved over there as well. She's somebody I'd love to talk to for Desert Island Graps on the Cultaholic podcast feed. I feel like this is somebody I'd love to get on the show, but we send nothing but the best to Vanessa Craven. And finally, we had Jack mention it in the news yesterday. Mickie James officially back with WWE, and we can confirm today her in-ring return date. She is set to be back in action this coming Monday on Raw, where she will face Natalya. That is set to be her in-ring return to Monday Night Raw. At this point, it doesn't look like she's going to be a part of the Tri-Brand Battle Royal on SmackDown this Friday. That was something that was speculated. It looks as if her first in-ring action is going to be against Natalya, who she had a little bit of a back and forth with on Raw this past week. I'm really happy to see Mickie James back. We talked about this on Graded yesterday. I know Jack talked about it as well. But Mickie James being back on the books, I think, is a really good thing for the locker room to have somebody there with that gravitas who has very much been around the WWE system and in other places as well, has a lot to bring. So whilst we found out yesterday that she's back as part of Raw, her in-ring return is set for next week. And I, for one, am happy to see Mickie James back amongst it in WWE. And that is your wrestling news for today. Check out our YouTube channel right now. If you missed it yesterday, Ross returned from a week away with a brand new WTF Moments. I was excited to hear what Ross made of the Raw Underground stuff. In particular, Dabba-Kato, aka Babatunde, and Shane McMahon hanging out. You can watch that on our YouTube channel right now. Plus, if you don't do so already, make sure you follow us on Twitch, subscribe on Twitch, send a bit and a cheer. I'm still learning Twitch words. As Jack and Owen are back tonight on Twitch, saving Sunderland on Football Manager. And you can watch how they get on with that at twitch.tv/Cultaholic. Stay safe. Love you. Bye. Are you gonna sleep all day? Are you just gonna... Fine. I'll play Lilac Wars on my own. Shut up, Slippy. I am on your side. Falco, you could bore off as well. Don't know why I'm playing Lilac Wars, I hate it.